Hello, my friends. This is Lynda Lippin, and welcome to the Pilates Goddess podcast.
I know.
Yeah.
It's like, hello, everybody. So now we're live everywhere. Having the usual, odd technical things with connections and whatever, but we're here. So thank you for everyone who's joining us live. My name is Lynda Lippin. I am the founder and CEO of Lynda Lippin Pilates, the Strong Bones Osteoporosis Program, and the Pilates Teacher Mastermind business coaching and continuing education program for Pilates pros. For you guys who don't know me or don't know me well yet, I really specialize in working with women over 50. I'm 55. Even though I went through surgical menopause 20, 25 years ago, there's still changes that happen to the body in the 50s. I kind of had this misconception, everyone, that I would somehow miss those changes in my 50s because they happened when I was 30. But apparently my hormones and body had other ideas. Now, as you guys know, I love to collaborate with other fitness and wellness professionals, especially those in the same space, because I'm a firm believer that there are plenty of clients for all of us, and we all have different things to offer our clients. So I'm here today with my friend Wendy Kleinke, and I've known Wendy, for well over a year now, I realize.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Wendy, like me, has a long history in the health and fitness space. She started in 2006 and has done cardiac research, member services, personal training. She's done corporate, nonprofit, for-profit, and finally her own business. I've been through a very similar path, and then finally, my own business. Wendy loves helping women prepare for and move through menopause, teaching tools of exercise, nutrition, and supplementation. And I am thrilled to have Wendy with me here today because we're going to talk all things kind of preparing and moving through menopause.
Yeah. Thank you, Lynda, for the wonderful introduction. I'm so glad to be here with you. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, good. So yeah, like Lynda said, I have been hanging out in the health and fitness space for a while, and my favorite client is usually someone who is getting ready to go through that life change. And the reason for that is because there's so much stuff going on in the body. And like you said, it happens whether you've had a hysterectomy or not. You're going to have some different changes. And a lot of times what people don't realize is that there's many hormonal changes that happen throughout life. The ones that we usually focus on are puberty and menopause, but there's also a big hormonal shift right around the age of 30 as well. And I think that one sometimes gets buried with babies. But what you'll find if you talk to women who don't have children, that all of a sudden they hit 30 and they start putting on weight and they can't get it off the same way that they could before. So I think that it's important to just kind of honor that timeline, that there are going to be some changes that are going to happen in your life because your hormone levels, they dip, and they're impacted by so many different things. They're impacted by your micronutrients. They're impacted by, your nutrition and what you're taking in. And I think it's important to just recognize that, it's okay if you're having a bad day because your hormones might be all over the place. And it doesn't make you a bad woman, or it's okay to have PMS. It's okay to, be in menopause and be upset. It's okay. So, that's always been kind of my favorite client, to kind of help educate them and ease them through the process, just because it's hard. It's hard.
It's really hard. And, Wendy, I find there's just so much conflicting advice out there, right? Mm-hmm. And so many folks are well, this works for everybody in their 20s and 30s, so maybe we should just do more of that.
No.
As we get into our 50s, and I found, especially after I had, my health crisis over the summer, that a big part of the stress that I was putting on myself was actually how I was working out.
Ah, yeah.
Yes. That I don't need the high intensity training anymore. And
Yeah.
I can't do strength training because I do like my strength training to be pretty intense. You know,
Sure.
I'm a big fan of maintaining my bone density. I'm a big
Uh-huh.
fan of a lot of these things. So I lift heavy and I like to do that. But I can't do days back to back, even if I'm separating body parts. I
Mhm.
have to take a day off. And in that day off, I have to do a mellow workout, like mellow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's totally okay, and that you should honor and listen to your body. You know, I have a story about my aunt when I was in school. She was doing all these boot camps, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, well, I can keep up with these girls, and like I can keep up with all these 20-year-olds." And I told her, like, I don't know that you should be doing that, you know? Like, not that she was not fit or that she was out of shape, but like her joints are not in the same type of state that they are when you're 20. You know, you've been putting stress on your joints for an extra 30 years when you're 50 compared to when you're 20. Like that's, and there is bone remodeling and bone growth and things like that. But as you age, you do lose, you lose collagen, like you stop producing it. Your hormones have started impacting each other because hormones don't do just one thing. You know, insulin is very well known for bringing in glucose into the cells, but insulin is impacted by other hormones as well. So like cortisol will raise your insulin levels. And I don't know if people are aware of that. And like cortisol is impacted by stress. Like cortisol, you get a higher production in cortisol when you are stressed out. And you can incorporate, like you can come across stress in many different avenues. Like there's chemical stress, physical stress, and emotional stress. And your body's going to respond to that the same way, no matter what kind of stress it is. So
Right.
anyway, I'm getting off track.
Cortisol always equals belly fat. I mean,
Yes. Yes.
part of the role of cortisol, right, is to be like, oh my God, this shit's going to hit the fan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Soon. And
then
there's not going to be any food. So let's just get ready for that. Like literally our lizard brains, that initial like stress response to over exercising, to your kid being an ass, to worrying about your hot flashes, any of that extra stress literally turns into fat storage. It's kind of very clear to me now that relationship is so strong and primal. And it's not a bad thing, but it is a thing that we need to deal with.
Yeah. And, you know, like you said, like when you're dealing with those hot flashes, like sometimes you can bring stress on yourself by not accepting that that's what's happening to you. Like by not accepting that, like, this is what's happening to your body and kind of embracing it and learning how to get through it. You can actually put more stress on your body, which will then in turn cause you to store more fat, cause you more of things that you don't want happening. So I think that, you know, kind of embracing what is happening and finding the best ways for you as an individual to cope is key, you know, and that knowing that what works for your neighbor next to you on the mat might not be working for you. And it's not a competition. Like this is about you trying to honor your body and take care of the body that you have, not race Betty Sue over here up the hill and blow out your knee. You know, I mean, like, and that, like, that was, I was circling back around to that was what happened to my aunt. And she did it actually 2 years in a row. She blew out her knee because she was doing the wrong type of exercise. So like you were mentioning, like when you listen to your body and like listen to what it's asking for, if it's asking for you to give it some more rest, give it some more rest, you know?
Oh, for sure. And it's kind of, you know, what I see a lot of women, especially where I live in Lower Manhattan, what they end up doing is eating way too little. So I have these conversations with my clients down here all the time about how they have to eat more than 1,200 calories a day. that under 1,200 calories a day is not enough food for anybody.
Right.
Like anybody ever.
Mm-hmm.
And believe me, I'm coming from when I was 12, I did 600 calories a day.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Well, and like we said, eating the 1,200 calories, like that's actually causing stress on your body. Like that's a mineral corticoid stress. Yeah, that's the chemical stress.
So if it's been like pounded into us, and I'm doing a lot of work on myself and, around me to kind of get out of it, right? But it's been pounded into us for so long that we have to that we have to be very, very thin and very, very small, right? I'm in the neighborhood of Tracy Anderson. She's, that's her.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not even talking smack about her. I mean, that's her brand MO, right? Is we're going to make you small. Right?
Yeah.
We're going to make your ass smaller. And that's how she sells her services. So we've been taught that we have to somehow be smaller as women, right? And B, that the way to do that is by not eating and by over exercising. So I literally have had clients who do 3 exercise sessions a day. They will go to Soul Cycle, they will go to Pilates, and they'll go to Dog Pound and get their high intensity strength training in. And none of them are feeling great or losing weight.
There is a thing that's referred to as exercise addiction. And I think that it's a very real thing. And if you're looking at 3 workouts a day, chances are good that you are either an actor who needs to be a certain size for a certain role, or you're flirting with, or you have an exercise addiction. But, to me, that screams abuse to your body. Exercise, I believe that exercise should be always somewhat enjoyable, if not fun. But it shouldn't ever feel like torture. And if you're exercising so much that you're needing to ice after every workout, that's probably not a good idea.
So I was watching. It was great. I was watching a James Smith video on Facebook the other day, and in his, I don't always totally agree with him, but in general I do, and I just like his approach of just saying whatever's on his mind, and he doesn't give a shit, and kind of like me, which I love because he's done it at a much younger age. And he just said, the question was, why are you so against HIIT, James? And he said, something? When I first started working out, I did HIIT. Everyone told me it was good for me, and I did it. And I hated it. He's like, I hated it. I hated it while I was doing it. I felt like crap at the end of every workout because I had gone past like my limit. And I saw no gains during that period. None. No extra muscle, no weight loss, like nothing. But here I was like busting it out and sweating out my butt and everything all over, puddles on the floor, DNA everywhere. He's like, and then I discovered weightlifting in a slow and steady way. He's like, and that I love.
So this is kind of, as you were talking, this popped up in my head, and I have to know what you think about this.
Okay.
Do you think that 20 years down the road, we are going to look at HIIT the same way that we look at ballistic stretching?
Yeah, I do. I really do. And I understand doing intervals. I understand doing more intensity and less intensity. But the idea that we somehow all need to be like performance athletes who are, busting out 50 burpees in a minute is fucking ridiculous. Plank challenges where people are just like hurting themselves because they're holding planks for 5 minutes for absolutely no apparent reason. None of this makes sense to me at all. I start looking at the paleo and the low carb thing, and I'm like, this is Atkins. It's coming back. It's returned. It's so interesting when we watch this, because, you know, ballistic stretching was such a thing for so long, and then everyone started tearing their tendons and ligaments, and then and everyone stopped doing that.
Yeah, you know, and I think that it's, you know, important to really listen to like what, and if it's not working for you, like if you hate it, you need to try something different, because there's so many different ways to exercise, and your body will go through different changes over the years. Like there's been times in my life where I need a lot of yoga, and that's what I'm doing. I'm hanging out in the yoga studio and that's what I'm doing. And then there's been other times, like, I mean, I've been a runner. I don't run anymore because my body doesn't like it. I was throwing my hip out of alignment every time I ran. So I don't run anymore. I walk now.
Right.
Yeah, because like you have to listen to your body. Like you have to listen to what it needs. And if you're hating it, if you're exhausted, if you can't perform the same way that you did last week, that is your body telling you that something is wrong, right? So like, how did you discover that you needed the extra day in between workouts? Like, how did that come about? I'd love to know.
Well, first of all, I realized I was always sore.
Yeah.
Like always sore. And I have a level of chronic pain that's with me all the time, every day. So for me, it's really not making that worse. Like, I know things are going to be there, but I don't want them to be worse. And so that's the first thing that I found, was that I was sore all the time, and that I was tired. And then I found myself, and this is something I think we also don't talk enough about, kind of chasing that endorphin dragon. Because the endorphin dragon is a thing.
Yes.
You know, it is.
Yes.
And it was like, I wanted that feeling of what it felt like 5 minutes after that HIIT workout.
Yeah.
Right. When you're like kind of dripping in sweat and the whole thing sucked and you hated it, but you're like, oh, now I feel kind of good. And that lasts, you know, for about 20 minutes. Where, you know, if you were, you know, a true addict, you could, you know, find a way to get that again. But usually your body's too tired at that point and you have to work and like deal with your day. So chasing the endorphin dragon does not, you know, work for most of us. But I found that, you know, that kind of thing was happening. And then I got sick. And in getting sick for an extended period of time, and then having a whole lot of other systems go awry because of all the medications and things that I was on from, you know, being sick. My body was like, you need to be nice to me. You know, my whole thing is helping women feel and function better. Yeah. And here I was using exercise as something else, right? I like not using exercise as a thing to help, as a thing to make me feel better, as a thing to make my body work better. But somehow as a thing to get through, and a thing to accomplish, and a thing to lose weight or to get smaller.
Yeah, you know, I think that it's great that you are acknowledging that, because I think, you know, as exercise professionals, sometimes I feel like, you know, our students, our clients, they forget that we're people too. And that, you know, we have very likely been in their shoes at one point or another. I know I've been on all different levels of the scale, and I've had to gain weight, lose weight. I've had to do a lot of, you know, like I've definitely been on both sides of it. And weight maintenance is no joke, but it's also something that, like, it's not just something that you're wanting to tick off your to-do list. Like, your exercises shouldn't be something on your to-do list. It should be part of your self-care. And with that, you need to be honoring how you're feeling. Otherwise, your body will stop you, like yours did.
Exactly. And your body goes,
you know, you don't listen, your body will make you.
You are not dealing with this in any kind of an appropriate way. And it was also that I wasn't seeing, you know, again, you stop seeing change, right? Because your body's just trying to recover so much that it doesn't have anything left to build muscle or burn anything off. And then your cortisol levels are so high that your body's not going to burn off fat because you're, you know, because it's pretty convinced that you need to hold on to that for the
Yeah.
starvation period that could be coming.
Yeah.
And, all of that is really, I think, for so many women, this kind of perfect storm. And then what we have around us are all of these companies that are ready to sell us that, right?
Yeah.
Go to
Yeah.
Beachbody and get your, high intensity, sweaty ass 90-minute, workouts, your P90X, your, and
Well, I think when it comes to supplementation, like you really need to know what you need, because oftentimes I will have people who are over supplementing protein because they have no idea what they're doing with it. Or
Right.
they will not be paying attention to other micronutrients that they need. And it's important that you figure out what you need. Like, honestly, like a lot of medication is based on things that happen in your body, which are hormonal reactions. So if you think about it, if hormones are impacted by your mineral levels and you don't want to get on medication, you might want to check your mineral levels and see where they're
and
at.
all of this is testable. Like when I go into my doctor and I'm like, yo, could you test this?
Mm-hmm.
He's happy to do it. So I'm like, can you track my vitamin D levels? When I was going through all the GI stuff with the gastroenterologist, she tested every single thing she could. You name it, I've been tested for it. And it was good to get that, though, like to know that my magnesium levels are fine, to know that my D levels are fine, to know where I need the help and where I don't.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't realize, and it's not necessarily something that is always age related. Like sometimes it could be a geographical thing. It could be what you're getting from your diet. My daughter had a severe vitamin D deficiency at the age of 17. And she was told to, take her vitamin D supplements. And she was actually supposed to take a very high dose to try to build her system back up. Well, in the process of that, I can pretty much guarantee at 17 from my very rebellious girl that she probably wasn't doing it she probably wasn't taking as much as she should have been, At 17, you can't hold them down and force them, though. No. And she ended up breaking a couple of bones that summer. So,
yeah.
I do believe that it was related to the vitamin D because her bones were a lot more brittle. They just didn't have the same type of strength as if they were fully, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, no, they just weren't fully supported. They weren't fully together. That was it.
And I think that, being aware of that was key, like having those tests run. It's important at any age. And when it comes to bone health, I think you and I are both pretty passionate about bone health just because of the type of women that we work with, the age of women that we work with. Osteoporosis is a very real thing and it can be fatal. Like, I don't think people even realize that, but like,
the biggest actually risk of death from osteoporosis is breaking your hip.
Yeah. It's falling. Yeah. And, people don't realize that, balance isn't something that it's a super important component to fitness. It's not something that people are often thinking about until they start getting older. And when falls become more and more detrimental, that's when people start thinking, oh, shoot, I need to do something about my balance. Well, you need to do something about your strength also, right? Because your muscle strength impacts your bones as well. So, hopefully you are incorporating that into your routines. Like, I know you are, Lynda, but hopefully whoever is watching is incorporating that into their routines. And if you need information about that, there's definitely professionals that can help you with that, like Lynda and myself.
Right. Yes, I was just going to say, you have two of us right here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it becomes, it's all of those years. And I think you and I both probably did a lot of the same things where we were just like, all those one leg things are so annoying, right? Mm-hmm. The single leg deadlift, the single leg squats, the sissy squats, the pistol squats, we're all like, we don't like doing those. We feel like we're going to fall over. We can't lift as heavy. Like, what fun is that? Turns out all that single leg shit is exactly what we need to be doing and should have been doing the entire time.
Well, and it's not always about the heaviest weight that you're picking up.
Right.
I love lifting heavy weight. Don't get me wrong. I love lifting heavy weight, but I also know, understand, and appreciate the importance and necessity of incorporating balance, of doing higher rep, lower weight things for the benefit of the entire length of the muscle, not just the strongest part. There's definitely a lot to be said into what goes into an exercise routine that you're not going to get out of a HIIT workout. You're not going to get all that specialized, targeted muscle work if you're just trying to get in as many as you can, as fast as you can. Like, you're putting yourself at risk for an injury.
Right. And do we need it? And that's the other thing. I'm like, as I look back, I'm like, I'm not an endurance athlete. I'm not a sprinter. I need to be able to like run up and down the subway stairs,
Yeah.
do my things. There's not a level of this kind of intensity that I need. I'm not an actor who needs to gain a lot of weight or lose a lot of weight. I mean, I have actually, just side note, I have so much respect for those trainers who specialize in that and get actors in and out of like 80 to 100 pound weight gains and weight losses. Mark Wahlberg just, I think, came out of one of those for one of his films. And I was kind of watching, him gaining and him losing, and read a lot of interviews with his trainer because I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
At the guys who can do that for these actors safely without long-term metabolic damage. And that's the other thing that I want the women watching this to understand, is that kind of training and that kind of up and down on the scale in short periods of time, done untrained and unsupported, can cause lasting metabolic damage. Metabolic damage.
Yeah. And, another thing, as long as you're kind of talking about that, I have people ask me regularly about body fat percentage and why they should be thinking about that and what that means. And all too often I run across women who think that their body fat percentage needs to be like super low. Like, first of all, as women, we need it to be like at least 20% in order for it not to be interfering with our hormones. Like, I'm sorry, but you don't want to mess around with hormones. Like, you want to be nice to your hormones, and you do not want to make them mad because they run the show, they really do. And like the weightlifting competitions, not necessarily the weightlifting, but the bodybuilding competitions, some of those women really do a lot of damage to their systems. And I'm not a specialist in that, but I know like friends of mine who have done that and who have lost their period for months and months at a time. That has a big impact on your body. So,
oh yeah. I mean, so many of the bodybuilders that I, really idolized when I was, in my teens and 20s, like Corey Everson, that group of women. And then reading interviews now with them on how horrible that time was for them and their bodies, and what a struggle it was to get pregnant after, and what a struggle it has been to learn how to eat normally, and like all of this. And then I'm sort of, and then I revisit their, muscle and fitness, like 6-pound Corey Everson workouts that I just loved and followed all the time. And now I'm like, shit, they were just peddling the big old lie there, weren't they?
Well, I do think that when they're in it at the time, Like they think that they're enjoying what they're doing and they don't even realize how bad they feel until they feel better.
Exactly. And that's kind of what happened to me. It was like, and not even on that scale. Like I can't even imagine what that's like on that level.
Yeah. So, I'd love to talk about a few ways that you can kind of check yourself on, like, yeah, like, I mean, let's get into that.
Yes. All right. So how do we check ourselves?
So the first thing that I always start with is hydration. And the reason for that is because, our bodies are made up primarily of water. And it's something that most people, including myself, will not always be cognizant of. Like it's very easy to check. You just have to look in the toilet, basically. Right. So how clear is your urine? Like, are we looking like lemonade or are we looking like tea? If you're looking like tea, you're in trouble. And
especially if you're doing HIIT and you're looking like tea, because then you could have rhabdo and then you have to deal with that.
Yeah. And that's a whole other ball game. Like you don't want to deal with that at all.
I've also seen here in CrossFit. So
yeah. So the first thing, CrossFit, don't get me started on CrossFit. No. That's a whole nother conversation, Lynda.
Yeah.
Whole nother conversation.
I know.
But yeah, the first thing that I always check is hydration. So that's always the first thing that I go to. It will show up in your headaches. It will show up in your skin. It will show up in your mood. It will show up in your hunger. So that's always my first check is hydration. So,
and it's pretty much half your body weight in water, in ounces of water.
Yeah. That's what you should be consuming every day. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then if you sweat a lot, you need to deal with that. And if you drink a lot of coffee and diuretic beverages, you need to deal with replacing a little bit of that.
Yeah. And if you're sweating a lot, like you are going to need to pay attention to your electrolytes because that can make you sick too. I mean, one time I went to a hot yoga class and I loved it. It was like an hour and a half long, but my electrolytes, like I sweat so much in that class and I'm not a sweater. Like I do not, and it takes a lot for me to sweat. But in that, it was Bikram yoga. And in that class, like I got so sick afterwards. Like I had to sit in my car for like 20 minutes before I could drive the 1.5 miles home. And then I had a headache for 2 days. So that was my body telling me, there's something going on here, Wendy. Right. And yeah, it was my lack of hydration going into the class and my inability to replace the electrolytes that I needed afterward.
Yes, I used to have that, of course, with the guests in the Caribbean a lot at Parrot Tea, because people would show up, they're drinking more coffee, they're hanging out, they're drinking more alcohol. And then all of a sudden people are in the Pilates class or Pilates studio getting cramps. In the gym getting cramps. And I'm like, electrolytes.
Yep.
Have a diurolite packet, my friend.
Yeah, for sure.
Drink the vitamin water in your mini bar.
Yeah.
We would literally put these things in the mini bars, like not just for fun, but because we were like, you're going to need electrolyte replacement while you're here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's where I start. What about you?
I do too. I look at water levels first. Are they drinking? Is there hydration? Especially folks who are concerned about their skin, concerned about their joints, because water, moisturizes, and it moisturizes us from the inside as well. Plus, our body is an electrical system. And just like when our car batteries run low on water, if we don't have enough water, there literally isn't enough fluid for the nervous system to work correctly.
Right. Yeah. The next thing that I would look at after the water has been addressed is pain and soreness. Like you were talking about how, you were feeling super sore, and when you're exercising and lifting weights, like there is a level of soreness that you can expect, but you shouldn't be sore all over all the time. Like that's too much. Like you shouldn't be sore for more than, a day or two. Like if you're sore for a week, that's a big red flag that you've got something going on. There was some kind of injury. Your body doesn't like what you're doing. Right.
Right. Yeah. And it was funny because the other day I was doing, my kind of low impact cardio stuff, and I was like, oh, my legs really hurt. And Tony looked at me and said, why? And I said, oh, because Saturday was leg day.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a reason. It wasn't just generalized pain. And it was so nice to have that, like, no, I worked out yesterday. I did legs. I got sore.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt better a day later.
Yep. Yep. And, and legs are weird too. Like leg soreness, at least for me, it's weird. Like it usually sets in not the next day, but the day after that. And it lasts a little bit longer. For me, upper body stuff is usually the next day and it's usually gone by the end of the day, but legs takes longer for it to set in for me and it lasts longer. And I find that that's true with a lot of people that I talk to. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I would say outside of like the expected soreness, like if your body is giving you pain or soreness that is lasting longer than that, then you definitely want to think about that and kind of listen to that. So hydration, muscle soreness, hunger.
Yes.
Yes, I definitely look at hunger. How about you?
Yes, whether you're hungry all the time or never hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Because both of them, either one of them can actually be a sign that there's something not great going on. Either that your body's gotten so used to living on too little food that you're just never really hungry, right? Because I have women who do that. And then the other direction is I'm starving all the time. Mm-hmm. And if folks are eating like a lot, eating kind of a normal quantity of food and are still starving all the time, then you have to really look at what it is you're eating and what you're not eating. Because, we somehow got into this thing that all carbs are bad, so we should never, ever eat them, right? It was kind of like when we got into the all fats are bad thing prior to the all carbs are bad thing.
I also find that people have a misconception about what is a carb and what is a carb. So like,
yes, right. So everyone, somehow equates the sweet potato with the Wonder Bread. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, no, these are very different things and different kind of carbs. Mm-hmm. And I think another thing that, people don't realize is that when you need quick energy, when you need a quick blast, and there are times when we do, carbs are your way to get that. Yep. Because they turn to sugar more quickly. Mm-hmm. Turning to sugar is not a bad thing in our bodies. At the end of the day, all our food, once everything else is taken out of it for what we need, turns into sugar. Our brains run on sugar.
I think that it's important for people to understand that we have a couple different energy systems, and carbohydrates is the quickest way to the easiest system that runs. So we have the carbohydrate burning system, then we have like the fat burning system. And that's kind of where keto comes in. But right. I think that you can't just run on fats. Like you have to have the carbohydrates as well. Like you need it. And, those systems do work interchangeably. Like it's not like and that's a conversation again for another day, but you need to have all three macronutrients. So in case you don't know what that is, that's like Lynda and I are talking about carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Those are called macronutrients. And you need to have a balance of all three of those. Right. Typically, people have similar needs, but they're going to be different. Just like with the kind of exercise you need, it's going to be different from person to person. So figuring out what feels good for you might not feel good for somebody else, right? But it is very, very important that you don't ever cut out completely a macronutrient. Like you need to have all three of them all the time.
Yeah, it's the fuel that our bodies need. It's just like you can't, run your car and not give it gas.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way. You can't put different kinds of oil into your car unless your car has been specifically like modified for that. Right. It just will always need it, needs a certain weight of it at certain intervals, period, end of discussion. And, like for when there's all kinds of things out there, there's carb cycling, there's whatever, but I think at base level, we all need that balance. And so many women overeat the protein and overeat the fat and are like, no carbs. Who needs carbs? We don't need carbs. And
that's where you get all your micronutrients from. So we're talking about macronutrients, but carbohydrates is where you get all your vitamins and minerals. And vitamins and minerals are micronutrients. And when you don't have the right blend of micronutrients, which is what impacts all of your hormones, are your minerals and your vitamins. That's where you get them from, is from the real carbs, the fruits and vegetables. So you can't cut that out. Like, you have to have those. And your body's going to absorb it much better from a natural food source than it will from any kind of supplementation. Like, don't get me wrong. I do believe that you need to supplement when you need it, but you shouldn't supplement for the sake of supplementation. You shouldn't just be supplementing just to supplement. And you shouldn't be doing it in place of something that you can get naturally, if that makes sense.
Right. It does make sense. And especially where I live, between Whole Foods and every other market, and we are not deprived of any kind of produce or protein or anything that we could possibly want at any given time. We have keto. We have all kinds of fun food outlets that will, everything from McDonald's and Pret to high-end takeout. There's all kinds of options, and it's really important that we eat real food. I don't know where this thing came from that we are supposed to rely on protein shakes and bars.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know how that's even appetizing. Like, I think protein shakes are disgusting myself.
They are.
They don't even taste good.
They are. Let's just be real. And for those of you who watch me drink protein shakes for years, Wendy drank protein shakes too. And that's how we know how disgusting they are. And we're so happy that we don't drink them anymore.
Yes.
And all of you out there who pretend to love your protein shakes, keep going with that until the day that you realize that you may not love them. If I want chocolate, I want chocolate. I want chocolate.
Yep.
If I want a cookie, I want a cookie. Like, I don't need to be drinking some concoction that's full of artificial sweetener that's like pretending to be protein disguised as some sweet.
Yeah.
Like, when did this happen where we decided that we couldn't eat a brownie, but we could eat some fucking protein bar that has God knows what in it, that's brownie flavored, and that was somehow going to help us?
That gives you gas too, by the way.
Yeah, I'm like, just eat some protein and have a brownie for dessert, and you will be fine.
Yeah. Have a piece of chicken. Like, it'll be okay. Like, chicken's not my favorite. Anybody who knows me knows I don't love chicken, but really, I would rather eat chicken than drink a protein shake.
Yeah. And we've really, we've gotten to this place where, I kind of joke a lot about the fear that women have now of eating a sandwich because of the bread. And I'm like, it's food.
Yeah.
Just, if you want a sandwich, eat a sandwich. You don't have to eat a sandwich every day.
Right.
You can have different bread choices and different filling choices. The sandwich is not inherently bad or evil or harmful.
Right.
Sandwiches are okay.
Yeah.
You can eat them. So are brownies. So are other things, but so are apples and pears and sweet potatoes and broccoli. So it's really like, eat food. Pay attention to, I tell my clients now to pay a little bit of attention to just quantity and how often.
Yeah. Well, and with that being said, also, pay attention to how you feel after. Because if your body doesn't like it, it's going to tell you. And it could show up in stomach aches. It could show up in issues in the bathroom. It could show up in headaches. It could show up in getting very tired afterward. Pay attention to your body. I feel like that's kind of like the theme of the day, right? Listen to what's going on with your body.
So one of the things that I found out in my myriad battery of laboratory tests over the past 6 months has been that I have an issue with reflux. And not only an issue with reflux, but I actually have Barrett's esophagus, which is where there's been, some longer term damage
Ooh, okay.
and cellular change, which I didn't know because I never really got heartburn or obvious signs of reflux. But I would get maybe a little bit gassy. Maybe every once in a while I would get a little nausea, maybe like nothing strong that made me be like, oh, I got to go to the doctor, because this is happening, or I'm taking Tums all the time or something. I didn't even medicate for it. But now I'm on Prilosec for a year to try to repair the damage. But what's very interesting is how much better I feel.
Good.
And that I didn't even realize the level of long-term not feeling great from different foods that I was eating and the times that I was eating them. Because the other things that I've stopped doing is eating late at night. And I've always been a late night eater. My parents were late night eaters, so I was a late night eater.
What is late night?
Like right before bed. Late night.
Okay.
Yeah. Like anytime between dinner and, I eat dinner at 8:30. I eat dinner early now and it's 8:30. Okay. So we were talking like 9:30. We were talking 9:30, 10 for dinner.
Okay.
And we don't go to bed till around 12:30 because I don't start early in the morning anymore. So that's good. But still, they were like, when you have reflux, you should really stop eating 3 hours before bed. Now, why did I always ignore that? Because that was the old weight loss rule, right? Jane Fonda said that we should stop eating like 3 hours before bed. And so I thought that was just if you wanted to lose weight. I didn't think that was like a whole could totally fuck up your esophagus. 50 years later rule. But apparently it is.
I love it.
And now you all know.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you're feeling better. Prilosec, I'm glad that it's only a year though, right?
Yeah.
That's good because you definitely don't want to be on that forever. Just because nobody wants to be on medicine forever.
But, a lot of this was just really not paying attention to that relationship with food, to how I felt after I was eating, to how I felt after eating late, maybe not sleeping as well, and just disconnecting from all of that and just going habitually along with what I had always done my entire life.
Yeah. So definitely, check in with your body and just pay attention to how you're feeling, how your body's responding. And if you know you don't feel good, but you don't know why you don't feel good, probably want to start talking to somebody about it. Whether that be your doctor or, maybe you've got a friend who's a nurse or a trainer or a nutritionist. But if you know you're not feeling well, you definitely want to get to the bottom of it before it becomes a bigger problem, because it will get bigger and bigger and bigger until you have to deal with it.
Right.
Right.
And then they're like, now you have to deal with it.
Yeah. So, just pay attention. Pay attention to yourself.
So we've got water. We've got paying attention to pain and soreness from over-exercising. Right?
Yep.
We have eating.
Yep.
Eating.
Yeah.
Which is good. Any other tips?
Yep. I would definitely say pay attention to your mental health, your stress levels, and what you're doing to manage that. Because like it or not, we come across stress every day. Sometimes it shows up, on the way to work. Sometimes it's emotional stress. Sometimes it's, relationships or things that happen throughout the day. Sometimes it's physical. So, that could be like a trauma, like you hurt yourself, you got into a car accident, you cut your finger on something. That's stress. Like that's stress on the body. Exercise is also stress. Exercise can be a good form of stress. It's not necessarily bad, but an overabundance of exercise can be actually damaging. So you see people who are running and they are not losing weight. If anything, they're getting bigger. Stress. And then, of course, the chemical stress, but we've kind of already covered that. So really the stress that I'm talking about in this last segment is really like your emotional stress, like what you're doing to kind of bring that balance down. And that's going to, how you deal with that is going to be super individualized. And it's definitely going to, like, your personality is going to come into play. Your learning style and how you interact with the world is going to come into play. A lot of times nature is the answer. Mm-hmm. A lot of times going outside and, interacting in the world environment, like in a natural setting, like in a park, or, just getting some fresh air can really make a big difference. Sometimes it's kinesthetic and you might need to, journal. You might need to take a bath. Like, it's okay to take a bubble bath. You might need to go get a massage. You might need some time to blow off some steam with your friends. Like, I would never choose a night out. If I needed self-care and my mental health was suffering, I would never choose that because it doesn't fit with my personality.
No, me neither. That's not my thing. But yeah, I know people for whom that would be their thing, for sure.
My daughter and my sister, like one of my daughters and my sister, would absolutely need to interact with their friends and spend some time with their friends. That's not for me. But like my aunt, she loves parties, loves getting together with people, loves doing that kind of thing. It's her personality. So kind of honoring your personality as part of your self-care, I think it's important.
Oh, definitely. It's funny that we're kind of having this particular discussion right now because I was listening to one of Glennon Doyle's podcasts yesterday.
Okay.
And one of the things that she said, which was really funny, was that she had always had a lot of anxiety over going to parties and like public gatherings or even having them, right? And having people over. And, needless to say, like, she's high profile. Her wife, Abby's high profile. These things do have to happen on occasion. Mm-hmm. And when they moved to California, she got her first invitation to a party that was time delimited. Just said, we would like you to come over. It's going to be 4 to 7.
Oh.
4 to 7.
Okay.
And Glennon was like, wait a minute. We can have time delimited parties and get-togethers. We're like, I know when people are leaving and I know when I can legitimately leave and not like be anxious about making anyone feel bad or being weird,
Yeah.
And I can actually host gatherings now and know that no one's going to be hanging out until midnight.
Yeah.
They are going to be out of my house at whatever time I end the thing. And I thought, yeah. See, not enough of that happens because I get that anxiety sometimes with like gatherings and going out with friends because I just want to go out for like an hour or two.
I don't want to go out
and then come back in if I want to go out. Like, but it has to be that kind of time delimited. Here's where we're going, and here's when we all leave. I can't do that. Like, it continues. Like, what are we doing? Can I go now? Am I being obnoxious?
Right.
Yeah.
Lynda, this has been great. I have to run.
So do I. But yes, we need to do this more. We need to have more discussions, I think, on our lives because we have a lot more that we could be discussing.
I love this. Lynda, please tell my people where they can find you.
So you can find me on my website, lindalippin.com, spelled just like my name. And I am on all forms of social media as either Lynda Lippin or Lynda Lippin Pilates. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Nice and easy. Yeah, I love it.
Easy.
I love it.
And Wendy, I put a link to your Facebook group.
Perfect.
In all of the social media posts as well as the event posts. And Wendy is at the Kleinke.
At the Kleinke Coaching Company. On Instagram. You can also find me at Exercises for Everyone on Instagram. And Wendy Kleinke is probably the easiest way to just search for me because, like, I have a pretty uncommon name. So.
Right. All your accounts come up as soon as I search.
They all pop up. Yep, they all pop up.
Wonderful. Well, everybody, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Lynda.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Music brought to you by Nerd Salad. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, especially if you liked it. And please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks.